Well, good evening. This is Hound Dog Steve coming to you on the 25th of June, which is a Monday evening, although you'll probably be getting this tomorrow on the 26th because it'll be uploading overnight. So this is a little story about Netflix and the 5-second rule. Okay, so Netflix has set some rules for its employees to follow to stop harassment in the workplace. And the 5-second rule is that you are not allowed to stare at anybody for longer than 5 seconds. Now this is just going to be a total fail. And one of the main reasons it's going to be a total fail is because there quite simply is nothing more interesting to a human being than another human being. Look at all of your sitcoms, look at all of your office comedies, look at just about anything in the film, TV, drama department, and it's all based upon people flirting with each other in some way or another, and that includes staring at each other, giving someone a wink, a nod, letting them know that you might be interested, waiting for a response, a smile back or something like that to see that there might be mutual interest. So to bring in a 5-second rule for staring is going to be virtually impossible to enforce, and it is going to be virtually impossible to comply with because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you've got to look away because it's creepy. Oh, and you can't ask for telephone numbers and you can't give an overly long hug. Now, what is interesting about looking at people in the eye, in our culture anyways, is a sign of sincerity. And interesting enough, I'm just going to point out here, because we are talking about looking at each other, some of the interesting cultural differences that might explain a few problems. Because when you look at black culture and white culture, there is an interesting little shift that takes place with eye contact. So, for example, if a white father is angry at his child and is giving them a talking to, he'll say, "You look me in the eye. You show some respect and you look me in the eye, and I will be able to tell whether you are listening or telling the truth." Okay, whereas a black father will say to his child, "Don't look at me. You have caused so much disrespect that I don't even want to see your face." So you can immediately see how you can have some cultural issues. You have a white police officer arrests a black man and he's asking him questions, and you may find that black man is looking away from the police officer in a sign of respect, and the police officer is thinking that that's suspicious because the person doesn't want to maintain eye contact. And conversely, you have a black officer interviewing a white person, and the white person is steadily maintaining eye contact, and the black police officer sees that as defiance. Okay, defiance of the respect that should be ushered towards the person in authority. So these cultural differences, we try and erase them, but they are actually very, very important. And I remember when I was teaching English to Vietnamese boat people when they were arriving from Vietnam in the late 70s, and there is a symbol that we use over here, which is this, which means okay, it's okay, say okay. Okay, now to a Vietnamese person, what you're saying is you are zero. I think you are zero, you are nothing. And so you can see how a little thing like that could really upset a conversation, these little misunderstandings. Okay, so we use eye contact to mean different things in different cultures. I think this is absolutely ridiculous. I think they should just leave it alone. I think they should just leave it alone and stop trying to distort who we are as people. It is absolutely insane. Anyway, Netflix, way to go. It's going to fail. I'm sure it's going to cause all kinds of upset and problems on your set. And another little thing which I was thinking of is, okay, say for example, I am looking at you, looking at me, and I count to 5, and I go, hey, you were staring at me for longer than 5 seconds. You know what I'm going to say? Well, you must have been staring at me a half second longer than I was staring at you, because you were watching me to make sure I was staring at you for longer than 5 seconds. So you're the problem. You're the one who broke the rule, not me. Don't people think this stuff through? I mean, isn't it obvious that if I'm looking at you, looking at me, I'm looking at you longer than you're looking at me, so that I can tell if you've been looking at me for the 5 second rule? Yes, it makes the mind boggle, doesn't it? Okay, so my next little story is kind of interesting. Amazon employees demand that the company cuts ties with ICE, that is the Immigration Control and Enforcement. In a letter, workers call for facial recognition tech, a powerful tool for surveillance state. Now there's an interesting comment in and of itself. Anyway, it's not very long, so I'm going to read you the whole article because there are some little gems in here. Okay, employees at Amazon.com are calling on Chief Executive Jeff Bezos to end the sale of facial recognition technology to law enforcement agencies and to discontinue partnerships with firms that work with US Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. In a letter, a group of Amazon workers say they are also troubled by a recent report from the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU, revealing the company's sale and marketing of Recognition, its facial recognition technology, to police departments and government agencies. Workers at Amazon are protesting the recently halted Trump administration policy of separating migrant children from their parents at the US-Mexico border. We don't have to wait to find out how this technology will be used. We already know that in the midst of historic militarization of police, renewed targeting of black activists, and the growth of a federal deportation force currently engaged in human rights abuses, this will be another powerful tool for the surveillance state and ultimately serve to harm the most marginalized, the letter states. Amazon did not respond to requests for comment. Bezos, who owns Washington Post. The letter, which was first reported by Gizmodo, follows employee-driven campaigns at Microsoft and Google, where workers have denounced projects to provide technology to ICE and to military operations. Last week, Microsoft Chief Executive Satya Nadella told employees that the company's nearly $20 million US contract with ICE was not tied to the Trump policy of separating children from their parents at the border. Google responded to a firestorm of employee resignations and public outcry surrounding a Defense Department deal. Executives said they would not renew an artificial intelligence contract for software that would help the Pentagon analyze drone video. Soon after, Google said it was banning the development of AI that can be used in weapons. According to the ACLU report, Amazon had been offering surveillance tech and consulting services to law enforcement agencies for only a fistful of dollars. And the details of Amazon's program highlighted the spread of powerful technologies into American life, often without public input or debate. You get that? Without public input or debate. Whilst Mr. Bezos remains silent, Amazon employees are standing up and joining shareholders, civil rights groups and concerned consumers to call out Amazon's face surveillance technology for what it is, a unique threat to civil rights and especially to the immigrants and people of colour under attack by this administration, said Nicole Azur, the Technology and Civil Liberties Director for the ACLU for California. We stand in support of these employees' call on Mr. Bezos to do the right thing. Amazon must stop providing dangerous face surveillance to the government. Amazon employees are also calling for the company to end its cloud hosting services with Palantir, the Silicon Valley data analysis firm, which was co-founded by billionaire investor and Facebook board member Peter Thiel. Well, isn't that interesting? Finally, people are waking up to the dangerous partnership between these corporations and the government and their surveillance technologies that they're working on in unison. And thank goodness people are calling this out. Thank goodness people are realizing how dangerous this is. And of course, I think this is the beginning of the split between these companies from the government, where they're basically the surveillance is government driven. Now, Google wants to surveil you, but it wants to surveil you more for a commercial purpose than for a control purpose. I mean, either way, it's kind of control, but the government is much more interested in surveilling you for terrorist / criminal / control of society reasons. And these are counterproductive to each other. Okay, when you are into commercialism and you want to sell a product and people are turning away from your product because you are in bed with the government and you are now handing over your information, you're surveilling on behalf of the government, and also creating surveillance tools to surveil your customers, well, now you have to make a choice because your customers are angry and they're fighting back, and they're fighting back in a big way. And this is a very interesting turning point. I'm going to be fascinated to see how all of this plays out. And it also plays into my next story about Facebook. And it says, former FTC worker says Facebook violated consent decree. There you are. No other single company has done more to erode consumer privacy, ex-chief technologist. So they have been selling your data worldwide to any country or organization or corporation that wanted to use that information for whatever reason that they so desired. So Facebook is really, they're not your friend. Okay, and I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, be extremely careful what you post on Facebook. Once you start coupling together, I did a video a little while back, I'll link that below, about the Chinese surveillance and facial recognition to pick up your expressions, to see whether you're happy or sad or angry or bored or what have you. And now you can see where these technologies might be crossing over and interlocking. So you imagine when you were caught on CC cameras, which are now popping up all over the place, and they're monitoring the expression on your face every time it picks up your face. And it is getting an impression of what your mood might be. It can follow your eyes to where you're looking. I mean, this is an absolute invasion of your privacy. And tell me, what do you need to know that for? What do you need to know if I'm shocked when I look at a poster or a billboard, or I'm upset, or I am overwhelmed? What do you need to know that for? That is my business, those are my feelings, and those are my emotions. I really don't see, I mean, just isn't there some point where all this information gathering just breaks down and falls apart and becomes absolutely meaningless? You know, we all are independent and unique beings. And so we are going to have unique, independent expressions on our faces, attitudes, communications, interests, you name it. And just because you have some algorithm that has an increasing number of checkpoints that might say that you are this person or that person, or that you want to buy this product or that product, or you're going to move left or right, it doesn't mean to say that that is going to be accurate, because we're all unique. And algorithms are one-paced. They have a checklist, and once that checklist is completed, as far as the algorithm is concerned, that's it. All the necessary information has been collected, and you have passed or failed, and there's no context, and there's no interpretation of this data for nuance, for cynicism, sarcasm, innuendo, all of these subtleties that we take for granted but are very much part of the human mechanism. So all these three stories are tied very closely together in the complete misunderstanding and the misreading of humanity to feel that we can be herded. And you know, you can herd us to a certain point, but you can see now in Europe that we've reached that line in the sand. And as it's being crossed, you are seeing the pushback from the public. And I think that's why you're seeing this large number of populist governments being elected, is because the public are getting upset at the social contract that's being broken by the government. Whilst on the one hand they are crying out for transparency and openness, and on the other hand they are covert, secret and non-transparent whatsoever. Okay, so these are very serious stories that I've given to you because they affect the way our society function and the way that we work with each other, how we communicate with each other. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed all of these 3 stories, and if you did, please like and subscribe below. Okay, so you take care. This is Hound Dog Steve signing off, and you have a great week, and we will talk very soon. See you now. Bye.